Welcome again to Ancient Tales for Today, 古今今谈. And this is a very old book with some very old but interesting stories. Now, the last time we were talking about switching the bride, 交换, 交换 the bride, 新娘呢? Whoa, that's very strange. But the story doesn't end. And today, which is lesson number 25, we begin to talk about the Great Sun War. Now, we'll be back in just a minute to look at this interesting story.
The Great Sun War. Remember the ancient tale about Jacob, who was tricked into marrying the sister of the one he really loved, and so ended up with 2 wives? Well, this is what happened later. As you could guess, the 2 sisters ended up as rivals, competing for Jacob's attention and trying to win his favor. Of course, at the beginning, Jacob loved Rachel more because she was the one he really wanted. But then Leah started having sons while Rachel didn't. Sons were very important, and this made the mother important. Leah gave Jacob 4 sons, and she believed this made Jacob love her more. It wasn't surprising that Rachel got very upset about this. Because she was not having any children, she gave her servant girl to Jacob so she could have children through her. Rachel's servant girl had 2 sons for her, and Rachel said, "I have had a tough fight with my sister, but now I've won." But the Great Sun War wasn't over. Leah thought she couldn't have any more children, so she gave her servant girl to Jacob. Leah's servant girl gave Jacob 2 more sons on Leah's behalf. Then Leah had another 2 sons, making a total of 6 of her own, plus the 2 from her servant girl. Rachel looked like she was losing the sun war, but then she had a son. Later, during the birth of a second son, Rachel died, but the son lived. Now Jacob had 12 sons, all the result of the competition between 2 sisters and the trickery of their family who had made Jacob marry 2 wives. It's not hard to think of what life would have been like in Jacob's home. The wives would have been arguing, the brothers would have been fighting among themselves, and Jacob would have had a hard time to keep the peace. All for the sake of trying to win the Great Sun War as the 2 wives competed for Jacob's love. What a tragic story.
Okay, we're going to start lesson number 25. It's called the Great Sun War. Now, normally you wouldn't have a title like that, but the war, okay, this 斗争, okay, 斗争. What is it about? It's all about who can give birth. Give birth 就是生 what? Sons. 男孩子. In the long time ago, sons were the most important, not daughters, you see. So, in today's story, you immediately have competition. Remember the ancient tale about Jacob, okay, who was tricked, 被骗, into marrying two wives. Remember that story? He married two wives. Okay? Now, he married the sister of the one he really loved. He loved the younger one, but he was tricked, 被骗, and he ended up, 结果呢, marrying the older one. And so he ended up with two wives. You remember all that? Yeah, that was the last story. Well, this is what happened later. So now some time is going by, okay? Time is going by, and now, as you can guess, the two sisters ended up, 结果他们就变成 rivals, okay, 对手. In other words, they did not have a friendly relationship. They were almost like enemies. They were competing for Jacob's attention. Okay? 象牙个争宠. In other words, they wanted Jacob to pay attention to them. Not her, but me. No, not her, but me. And so you see, they were competing for Jacob's attention and trying to win his favor. 要尽量想办法, okay? Trying to, 尽量想办法 to win his favor, 争他的好处. Of course, this is what happens when you end up with two wives. Of course, at the beginning, Jacob loved Rachel more. I mean, that was the whole story. That's the one. Rachel was the young lady he intended, 本来想要结婚的那位. Okay? That's the one he intended. Jacob loved Rachel more because she was the only one he really wanted. He only wanted one wife. But then he got tricked. So he ended up, 这个结果呢, he ended up with two wives. Going on. But when Leah started having sons, Leah, now remember, Leah is the older sister. She was not the one Jacob really loved. But Leah, when she started having sons, while Jacob didn't. See? So one sister is 生孩子, 男孩子, and the other sister didn't. Okay? Sons were very important. And this made the mother important. 使妈妈更加重要. Leah gave Jacob 4 sons. Now, so it's easy to say, well, you had 4 sons. She had 4 sons. 她生了4个男孩子. It's easy to say that. It takes time, okay? And she believed, 她认为, okay, this made Jacob love her more. For sure, 肯定雅各是更加爱我了. Now, it wasn't surprising that Rachel got very upset about this. Of course, this is the problem when you have 2 wives. So Rachel, the younger sister, she was not having sons, no sons, and she got upset. In this case, upset means 生气. Upset often has different translations, but here I would say it's best just to translate upset on 生气. Because she was not having any children, she gave her servant girl to Jacob so he could have children through her. 因为, okay, she was not having any children. That means she was not giving birth to any children. She gave her servant girl, 把她的女佣人 gave to Jacob so he could have children through her. 那就是因为那样他可以生孩子. Okay? So now, Jacob ends up with 3 wives. 3 wives. Okay? The Leah was first, Rachel, and then you have the servant girl going on. Rachel's servant girl had 2 sons for her. So Rachel felt like this was her sons. Even though it wasn't her sons, it was the servant girl's sons. Okay, so now Rachel's feeling a little bit better, not real good, but a little bit better. And Rachel said, I have had a tough fight. Okay, a tough fight. 这个斗争很艰难的. Okay, with my sister. But now I have won. 我赢了. Not really, but at least she felt like she had won. Okay, so now at least she's feeling a little bit better. But the story hasn't finished. And in a few minutes, we'll be back to look at it sentence by sentence. For now, let's take a break. Okay, now for more light on the path. Here we go. This is Proverbs 31, 10, and 11. This is 31, 10, and 11.
就是箴言的31章第10节、第11节。
Here it says, a wife of a noble character, who can find? She is worth more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value.
这个经文呢，是说到才德的妇人，谁能得着呢？她的价值远胜过珍珠，她丈夫心里倚靠她，必不缺少利益。
Actually, Lena, this whole section is talking about the value of a good wife.
是的，这个一个家庭里面呢，这个太太的角色是很重要的。
Yeah, and 她的价值很重要。
对，
I often joke, I said, without my wife, I starve to death.
然后听了这个故事哈，艾老师，我有一个感觉，就是现在呢，很多人的痛苦呢是来自家庭里面。那这个故事里面也是说到家庭里面的战争。
对, in fact, you had 2 sisters. First of all, the first problem, you only marry one wife, but now he has more than one wife. 而且她们是姐妹。
对。
Okay, and then they are in competition. Okay, 他们比赛，谁能够生最多的男孩子。
对对。
So our times are different. 当文化跟时间时候也时代也不同。
对
Okay,
对。
but 家庭问题 family problems are very, very serious. And unfortunately, children, they learn from their parents.
他们学的一些东西是从他们父母来的。
Yeah, and so the only thing they saw was what their parents did, so they do it again.
那就是说到在家里面，如果是父母都不和睦，像这个家里面有这么多的事情，孩子们看不到一个好的模范、好的榜样，对吧
？Then it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Not impossible, 不是说不可能的了。But it's much more difficult. I can only say that when God changes people, He can change even these things. 当上帝改变人家，那他连他的婚姻也会变好。But the Great Sun War wasn't over. Now, remember what we said, the Great Sun War, meaning the war, 这个争斗, okay, about who can have or give birth to the most sons. And so the Great Sun War wasn't over. Leah thought she couldn't have any more children. So Leah has already had 4 sons. 已经生了4个男孩子. Okay? So she thought, no more. Somehow she stopped bearing children, no more sons. So she did something. She gave her servant girl to Jacob. So now the older sister gives the servant girl to Jacob as a wife. Uh-oh, now you got 4 times trouble. He's got 2 wives, and he's got the wives, 2 servant girls, and they're all his wives. Okay? So 这个女佣人. Okay? Leah's servant girl gave Jacob 2 more sons in Leah's behalf. Now, do you notice this? It says in Leah's behalf. So it's a T Leah, okay? T Leah, okay? On Leah's behalf. Then Leah had 2 more sons. Whoa! They're having babies right and left. 很多, many, many more sons. Okay, so, wow, how many does that make? It makes making a total of 6 of her own. Leah now has 6 sons. Okay, plus 2 from her servant girl. So, if you count 6 of your own, and your servant girl has 2, so now you have 6 plus 2, that's 8. She wins, right? Well, let's go on. Rachel looked like she was losing the son war. Of course, at this point, it was what? It was 8-2. Okay? So it looks like she was losing the war. 她正在输, okay? 输给她的姐姐. But then, wow, amazing. She had a son herself. Okay? 她自己生了一个孩子. Wow. So I imagine it made her feel very good because she really, really had a son, not just through her servant girl. And then more time happens. Later, during the birth of a second son, so she's having a second son. That's the good news. She is 她正在生第二个儿子. She died herself. 她自己本人, 这个拉姐, she died herself. Rachel died herself. But the son lived. Mother died, but the son lived. Okay, so now what do you have? You have Jacob, and how many sons does he have? 12 sons. Okay, and these 12 sons, for the next few stories, we're going to hear about the 12 sons. Jacob totally had 12 sons. And all the result of competition between two sisters. And the reason why there were so many sons is because of competition, 这个争斗, okay? You could say 竞争 competition or 争斗. Whatever it is, it's competition between two sisters, okay? And the trickery of their family who made Jacob marry two wives in the first place. Of course, 最起初这个问题出在哪里？ The family 家族就骗了雅各 and forced him 强迫他 marry 跟两个新娘结婚了 See, and this one problem to start with, to have two wives, created a result, 这个后果 that was very terrible. And so then you end up with competition and fighting. It's not hard to think. Okay? In this case, it's not hard to think. 一点都不难理解。理解什么？ What life would have been like in Jacob's home. 在雅各的家 这个生活会怎么样 Okay, it's not hard to think. It's not hard to think. That means 很容易理解或很难不理解 Okay? So that's a double negative. Okay, going on. The wives would have been arguing, okay, 争吵, the wives arguing, of course. The brothers would be fighting with each other among themselves. 在期间呢, they're fighting with each other's, okay? And Jacob would have a hard time to keep the peace. 好不容易保持平安和平 Okay, to keep the peace, 保持和平 Okay, and this all happened for the sake of trying to win the great son war as the two wives competed for Jacob's love. 为了雅各的爱就竞争 or 争斗 Okay? What a tragic story. It is 算是可悲的一个故事 Simply because one mistake creates other bad things, and it just keeps going. One bad thing right after another bad thing. 这个行邪恶有一定的后果 Well, we're going to be back with some other things, so we'll take a little break just now.
艾老师，这里有几个生字，我想跟您谈谈的。一个呢，就是说到competing for Jacob's attention.
Okay. Competing. Competing. Okay. It's kind of like they're fighting. They're 比赛 they're I don't know Chinese. My Chinese not so good.
我看呢，这个地方呢，可能是说两个人竞争了，要得到
他的爱，
他的 attention， 他的注意。那中国人把它翻译成可能是争宠，两个人就是争宠，希望那个丈夫更多的爱自己，宠自己。
Okay, and then I think we only have time for one more word, and that's upset.
哦，这个字我常常看到，它是不是有很多解释呢？
Oh, yes, very, very many meanings. And so you have to look at the context, 这个上下文才知道. Even in here, it's hard to say. But in this case, upset means 非常生气. It could also mean what? Sad, frustrated, 等等. Okay.
我知道有的时候他会把它做成就是很低落depressed.
Depressed,
对吧？
yes.
还有一个字是 arguing，
Arguing, 争吵.
争吵、吵架。
Well, now we've come to the end of this interesting story. Maybe your life is not as complicated as Jacob's, but I'm sure that you have had some sad experiences too. The Great Sun War created all sorts of problems, and the following stories will tell us something about that. But first, we have Jacob a long, long ways from home. Now he has a family, he has 12 sons. He needs to go home. He must go home. God told him to go home, but he didn't want to go home. All sorts of problems, and he found that he ended up fighting a very big person. And so, hang tight for our next lesson.
That's all for today, and thanks for watching. If you like Ancient Tales for Today, please visit atft.chinesehope.tv. You may also contact us by writing to ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Again, that's ancienttalesfortoday@gmail.com. Tell your friends about Ancient Tales for Today. See you next time.